Good evening and welcome to the August 22nd, 2018 Norfolk Planning Board meeting. Please be advised that tonight's proceedings are being videotaped and audio taped for distribution at home. Our first order of business this evening is a continuation of the public hearing on Cranberry Heights definitive open space subdivision. So, sir, you may begin.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. On behalf of the applicant, I'm Steve O'Connell from Andrews Survey and Engineering. Probably just a couple of brief things this evening. I know the revised plans have just come in. Nothing from Beta, obviously, but since our last meeting, I'll just quickly inform you that we've provided responses to all of Beta's comments. Subsequent plans that accompany those responses, but we've also received a letter from environmental partners with regards to the water distribution system. Yep, it's it's a very thorough letter, as it typically is. As you know, a lot of that stuff is kind of boilerplate Norfolk water system information about the median, the hydraulic grade line, elevations. So, my takeaway from the report is that the system, the existing municipal system, can service the project. There's a couple of lots that might need internal jockey pumps. One lot in particular that's very close to the hydraulic grade line. They recommend, they think it's good practice to loop the water line, which would be out through Cranberry. We've talked about that briefly in the past. But my understanding of the letter is that it's not a requirement on an engineering level, but then practice and of doing so, is probably the discussion point there. And I think there's discussions that we'd like to have with environmental partners, your staff, DPW. So we're coordinating a meeting to do that, and hope to provide a little more info and kind of resolution or proposal on on that water extension process or phase, so to speak, especially with an abutting or nearby project. And we know it's time sensitive because of the bridge project. I've been following the selectmen's meetings. We've been in close contact with your planner, so we're going to get together. Looks like tomorrow.
You have the meeting scheduled, you say?
Yeah. Yep. We're going to try to get together tomorrow to try to to talk about some of the technical details of really sequencing and things like that. So.
Okay. Back to the business of several lots needing a booster pump. They specified which ones they think are appropriate. I suppose it deals with the elevation of the particular lots. Do you agree with what they've said? I agree that one of the lots in the cul-de-sac. Mm-hmm. But not the others.
Right, not the others. Because it comes down to, they say, where the water system connection is, and that water system connection's in the street, and the only lot that has the same elevation as the hydraulic grade line of the water system is the last lot in the cul-de-sac. But that's something we can... We've been in contact with environmental partners. They were going to update their memorandum there. There was one question we had, for example, they wanted us to move a hydrant. We had indicated to them that the hydrant was proposed in a location consistent with the regulations, your subdivision regulations. So they said, okay, fine, keep it where we proposed it. So they were going to issue an updated letter stating stuff like that.
We'll wait for their updated letter that deals with the hydrant and with the various lots and your counter-argument. And we'll also wait to hear from the results from our town officials, results of the discussion between yourselves, the town officials, and environmental partners and others on that loop.
Lawrence, yeah, it's really the Lawrence Street connection and,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, the continuation of the, can you tell us when that meeting is scheduled?
Tomorrow.
8 a.m. tomorrow.
8 a.m. tomorrow, well, that's certainly,
You should probably
Quick
go
enough.
over with them, Steve, at that meeting also, between you and the proposed project across the way, the Abbeville project.
Yep.
Your introduction was well presented for your client, but the two things that obviously are considered, the redundancy of water is limited, so the line to Franklin is a big issue, in case we need that. And we've been talking, at least I have been talking about the looping because of the pressure, and I understand it's uphill, I understand there's some ledge there, but that really, when you look from a proper planning perspective, I don't see how you can avoid looping through Eagle to the big main at Lawrence Street, and between you and the person that may or may not develop across the way, how that line, I think the person across the way in one of my meetings talked about him running the line all the way to Franklin anyway. And I think one of the reasons was because of this outskirt of town. If we do have a welcome now with no redundancy, we need to get water there. So I think you probably, when you meet with the folks from Environmental Partners, you probably focus on those two things. And maybe even you could have a conversation with the applicant across the way. If you were forced to bring the water line and loop it through Eagle Drive, perhaps he could run the water line to the Franklin line. As you know, there's a high content in some of our testing been done of arsenic through that whole area. And it's a big concern, one of the reasons we want the water up there. So that being said, my guess is everybody in that whole area is going to want to have the opportunity to connect to a service anyway in the near future. So
Okay.
once you focus on those two things, okay?
We have reached out and have had conversations with the other project's proponent.
Good.
So we've established that chain of communication, and we'll
Okay, good.
maintain that.
good, thank you.
With regards to, other items, I know that we weren't going to get into the weeds on anything, but I think it would be helpful, and nothing official, obviously, but I think it would be helpful if we were aware from the board if there were concerns about any of the waiver requests, because those could have an impact on, on plan preparation or, review by Beta. So, nothing formal per se, but if there's any discussion points with regards to some of the waiver requests, a couple of them were actually, recommended by Beta. We added a waiver about the tree spacing because we know that as a board you're working on increasing that spacing.
Yep,
But if that's
Understood. Okay.
a reasonable request,
I think so.
it would be helpful.
Rich, we're going to have Beta look at these plans again.
Yes.
Which is
Yeah.
going on. Well, simultaneously, we ought to just go through and look at the waivers and come back with a letter that says, we agree, we disagree, blah, 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 on point and point, all right? Can you do that? We get a draft for the board to take a look at
Sure.
before we issue it?
We'll have to wait till our next meeting, correct?
Pardon me?
It'll wait till our next meeting?
Yes, it'll wait till our next meeting, yeah.
I think if you're looking for the board to, are you asking right now? For
Well,
the waiver?
yeah, I mean, my original, that was kind of my intent, was if there was, not necessarily go by one, but if you scan down the request, there's, 10 or so. If any of them seemed like problematic or that required a more lengthy discussion than we wanted to get into tonight, but at least give us an idea if there's something we need to kind of keep in our mind or provisions.
So I read through them, and there's two that I wouldn't say jumped out at me, but I'm going to say it. It's SW8 and LA4. There's two that I'd be interested to see what the developments of them are.
I don't have
Oh, the
an
comments,
Yeah.
SW8?
Yeah.
I don't have an SW8.
Okay.
Oh, am I looking at the wrong one?
Well, I was just thinking for the waivers.
Oh, just the waivers.
Yep,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
the
Just the
waivers.
waivers.
I was deeper.
That's okay, I appreciate
Are
that.
any of those, Steve, knowing what the system as you do, are any of these waivers here out of the ordinary? Are they, a lot of them standard, or?
Yeah, a lot of them are standard stuff that's been granted in the past.
Which ones might the board be hesitant on?
You know, there's a center line, I'm not saying that you'd be hesitant, but there's one that's, you know, unique to the site. It's a center line radius when we come in off Eagle Drive.
W2?
Yep, W2.
So the stone wall is one, right? I think you probably would want to know that.
Yep.
Because
Yep.
Beta is deferring to the board on the retaining wall.
That's correct, yep.
Where is it?
So
W6?
that walls would be on the back of sidewalk as we came in from Cranberry Meadow.
So you wouldn't see them visually from the street?
Yeah.
You would see, yes, you would see this particular wall from the street.
Yeah, you would see the wall.
What's the size of it?
Can you go to a certain, can you go to, let me, sheet 5-1. Keep going, please. Yeah, I'm sorry, not page 5, probably page 10. One more. And maybe one more. There we go. Might want to zoom in a little bit too. So it's right, you know, it's right in this area here. So we've got a retaining wall to keep the grading necessary off of a budding property, a budding property owner's property. So,
Why isn't the required cemented stone masonry acceptable?
just generally due to its longevity of strength for for a wall that's going to be probably 6 feet tall.
Come on. The specs, it's fine. We want the wall just like those nice entrance ones and rent them just down the way.
Those are landscape walls. Those are, those are nice.
If you build a wall to Mass Highway specs, it's gotta be structurally fine to hold back a grade.
Yeah, the only difference is Mass Highway would do a taking to build that wall. You know, for to meet their spec, you would have to. You know, the base is 2/3 the height, and the base of that wall. Like I said, and then I think the other waiver, and I don't think it was a concern, but it's kind of related to this, is the sidewalk just jogs in to be right up against the curb, just so that wall can be built, and then jogs back out. That's not so much of a design or plan criteria, because the wall would just be the wall. It's not going to have impact on the plans, so that one doesn't really affect too much.
So John's comment notwithstanding, what type of wall are you proposing?
It would be a cast-in-place concrete, and it would have a facade, so it would look like masonry.
I would be against that.
Okay. So that's not something that affects our plans, so if that's something... Yeah,
The radius, though, the radius on the cul-de-sac,
yeah, the radius would be... Betsy, could you pan up to the
you
top?
talk
of
to
this?
the fire chief on that, he'd be probably the one that I would look to.
Yep. It'd be this radius right here as we come in from the extension of Eagle.
And what is it, more sharp than,
Yeah, so your requirement is 170, and I believe we're 120.
are there any sight distance issues that creates?
No, there's plenty of horizontal sight distance there. There's not a stopping intersection, so
Why
that's not...
why don't you put that request through our police and fire chief, Steve, and
Okay.
if he is no problem, at least we have that to go by.
And if you were compelled to get closer to 170, you'd have to flatten that radius, right? Flatten that curve.
Well, we would, but what also happens is that we'd have tying in, we're fixed, so we'd be tying this, I would put this curve for the extension of this roadway outside of the right-of-way that was made for a provision for the extension. So in other words, it'd be on private property.
Yep.
The right-of-way?
The right-of-way and the construction of the roadway and the sidewalk on that side.
And you just need an easement for that, correct? Or an easement?
Probably more than an easement, because for a public way for the town to accept the road in the future, they'd want fee. They'd want the fee in the road. But
And down there in the lot, I can't read what number it is, but, no, not that one, that fellow there, yeah.
this is
you'd
lot
have-
one. Yep.
Yeah, you'd have to take some of that frontage off there too, would you?
Well, it would definitely cut through that lot, but
Yeah.
then geometrically, where we would have to tie into the extension, we'd have to tie in further up here and
Yeah.
go across the corner of that landowner's property,
Yeah,
So you
as
can't-
opposed to staying within the edge of the right-of-way that was provided to.
Steeper.
yeah.
So, I mean, it's, I don't,
I understand. Well,
Yeah.
I think John's suggestion is a good one. Go to the chief of police and the chief of the fire and see what they have to say.
yeah, I concur.
Is 10 is that the one that deals with the accessibility issue we were talking about?
I think this is just, to be honest, actually, this is just, because your cross-section has your sidewalk with a grass strip, so this particular waiver has to do with the little jog in the sidewalk near the entrance we were just looking at to the bottom. If you could pan, please, to the bottom.
Do you want to go down?
Yeah, down where the other entrance is, please. Yeah, so it's just it's kind of a technicality, but didn't want to be
How
presumptuous.
long would it be? How many feet, roughly?
About 50 feet
50 feet.
for the transition of the sidewalk, and then sidewalk is right up against, you lose the grass strip,
Yeah,
and then you'd get
yeah,
it back for that,
yeah.
about 50 feet.
About 50 feet, okay.
It's a good one for Beta to comment on.
Yeah, I think so too.
So what, if I'm off topic, we can talk about it later, but what happened with our accessibility issue? That's with the sidewalk, right?
Yeah,
You guys were gonna go talk to the state, right?
we're waiting for a hearing date for another project, but same circumstance in another community. We're optimistic that we'll get the waiver we need based on discussions with them and discussions that Beta had with them. Okay.
So
I mean,
you're
I
in the
think,
queue, but you don't have a date yet with those fellas, huh?
I don't believe we do. How do you know if we have a date? No, we're waiting. Might be a long line. So, okay, I mean, I think that pretty much covers, we're actually proposing vertical granite at the roundings. You don't require it, so that would technically be a waiver, but we would have sloped in other places and vertical at the intersection roundings.
Yep,
Okay.
I think that would be welcome.
Okay, appreciate your input on those.
Okay.
The only other matter for us, Mr. Chairman, one of Beta's comments was to try to identify the extent of ledge that would be encountered. So we have we have staked the center line of the proposed road, and we've got a boring rig, a drill rig, ready to go on site. What we typically do is provide some preliminary clearing path for the rig. But I know that there's some bylaws in town that talk about, unnecessary tree clearing and land disturbance, but I did have a conversation with Rich, and he felt we were on stable ground, but while we're here, I thought maybe just to kind of get the board's permission, we in order to get that equipment in there, and
Need to go to Bob Bullock, right?
Yeah, I ran it through Bob. He was fine with it.
Okay, all right.
So,
okay, yep, it'll be about half the width of the proposed roadway, and we're going to follow the center line staking that we did, and we're going to test in the center line, and we're going to go perpendicular in a couple spots where we have some cuts on some of the lots,
Yep.
so we can get a good representative sample of the ledge and provide everyone that info.
Comments from anything on the board?
Yeah, I think if they find ledge, and you're gonna have to blast, I think that we're gonna have a set of procedures just to see how that goes forward, mainly because you've got all the surrounding bedrock wells, and you've got the arsenic content that's
Sure.
above the levels that are allowed. So I think that we come up with a process when you do that blasting to make sure that the wells aren't affected or the water quality.
not a
So
problem.
hopefully you won't have to do any blasting.
Yeah, I think that would be great for everybody.
I know.
But, yeah, that's an exercise where, we're hoping turns out favorable, and you'll be second to know after me.
You said?
Believe so.
All right. Anyone in the audience have any comments on Cranberry Heights here? All right, then, I believe we still have, if I'm correct, the public hearing is still open, is that right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So we need a motion to continue the public hearing till our next meeting, which is on September 19th.
Motion to continue the public hearing for Cranberry Meadows till September 19th at 7 PM?
No, we've got a 7.
7:15.
7:15.
Second.
We have a motion, it's been seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
See you next month.
See you then.
The 19th, I think she said.
Do the temporary occupancy.
Our next order of business is Fern Ridge.
Okay.
So Mr. Petrosi's in the audience, and when we last left this discussion, Mr. Petrosi was proposing that he would put the open space money that is owed to the town in escrow in the hands of his attorney, and wait on the decision of the board to amend the open space subdivision permit that was originally granted to him. And that's where we were. And since that time, we've had some discussion with our town council, and our town council is here, and we would like to hear from him before we make any further discussion. Sure, that's fine. That's good.
Mr. Chairman, members, Kevin,
How's it going?
a minute.
2 horses. This is the second horse that he's riding.
Nice to be here. Yes, I have had some considerable time spent with Rich and with counsel for Mr. Petrosi, getting a good deal of history on this, and also taking a look at the relief that's been requested in this matter. I'm also aware of the outstanding issue with respect to money owed for open space payment, we'll call them open space payments with respect to property already developed. So from what I understand from council, and maybe this can be confirmed by some of your own plans, and so I understand that the hearing is closed and we're in deliberations now. So
Correct.
this is an instance where I think the request from the applicant is to parcel some amount of property off from the current open space that is scheduled to be deeded and committed to be deeded to the town.
If I might just pause, do you have that you could put up on the screen?
This is land that should have been deeded before the first lot was released.
That's right. As my understanding from the original approval is that it's like any other subdivision with X number of lots and then some, great deal of open space that's to complement the entire development, and that the open space was to be deeded to the town. And a lot of times, those administrative details just don't get followed through on, and in fact, property has continued in this applicant's name, ownership, as it stands presently. So with that temptation, if you will, he's come back to the board in an effort to expand, I'll use that word, the development, in the nature of that expansion is to parcel off a piece of the open space in order to sell to an abutting neighbor, so that neighbor could build an in-ground pool. That's my understanding of
And
it.
that drawing is on the board behind you now.
How are you phrasing, Dave, expand the development? What do you mean by that?
Well, again, just using simple understanding, if this is a lot developed, this was open space. He's looking to recapture, claw back, if you will, that portion of an open space in order to sell it to this lot owner.
For what reason?
I'm told, and I don't know if your committee has been told, that in order to allow this resident to build an in-ground pool, I think in this vicinity.
And to pay the open space fees that are due.
Pardon me?
And to pay his outstanding open space fees that are due.
Now, and this is where, you know, I know it gets a little blurry for your planning board. What I've suggested to Rich is that you ought to judge the request for the modification on the merits of the request. I don't know how you would judge this kind of request for modification in any other development. In this instance, it's really de facto remaining open space. Yes, it's going to be appended to the abutter's property. He'll have a greater lot share to pay greater taxes on, but assuming by way of the modification and conditions attached to that modification, it remains open space for the sole purpose of installing an in-ground pool. I think in that respect, you kind of have achieved the purpose of open space. There's been no other structures on the property. It'll be, you know, the same vista as you would have presently.
Well, yes and no.
I mean-
A pool requires a closed fence around it just for safety reasons.
That's
So
right.
there is going to be a fence. I forget the height requirement, but it's substantial, 5 or 6 feet. And I don't know whether it has to be solid or it can be a chain link fence, but it has to be a fence. So there's a little bit of a vista change.
Yeah, that's true, and in fact, if it's a treed area right now, it may not remain that way. It could in fact be cleared. But in any event, it's not the equivalent of, as I understand it, it's not the equivalent of coming back to your board and asking for a new developable lot to be created from open space, which I should think you would find that objectionable.
Yeah.
This is, while it's a request for really the benefit of an abutter, it's still within a reasonable range for your consideration in the nature of a modification. And it's really only, Frank, and that's why I want to urge you to consider the modification on that basis, those merits. The fact that the town is owed a couple of things here. We're owed tax money on what is still owned by the applicant, which I've explained to Rich. You know, that it's time for the town to make an aggressive effort to collect any overdue taxes on that property, number one. And number two, the open space payments that are owed really is a value-added benefit in the event of your approval of the modification. That's a standalone obligation. You know, whether or not you agree to the requested modification, we have every intention of collecting it.
Yeah.
It's just that simple. We'll need to begin the process of collecting what's owed.
It's not that simple. I mean, I'm not even, it's like surreal. I chaired this committee for a year. We met with you. We all understand that this is a change in a subdivision open space to give back land so an applicant can pay his fee.
No, there's,
That's what it was presented to us. It was presented to us. We've discussed it for 2 months. We discussed this with you. And we talked about this open space fee going into escrow, being paid in advance, being every which way. So does anybody know when this I mean, you want us to give back the town's land. Does anybody know when the planning board decided on this open space subdivision, all the criteria that they used to come up with this whole plan, what was sacrificed for what? And they did things for a certain reason. We don't know what the reasons were, and now we're looking to just change this. And the second thing, again, I'm just saying what I've said before, we have neighbors, and including a couple here, that made their decisions based on this plan. They bought homes for this. These are residents here. So we're gonna give back the land of the town we tried desperately to keep to enrich somebody, to make somebody's backyard bigger, not knowing what the planning board did with their actions. Maybe they took the extra open space for a reason in lieu of something else that was bypassed. And the conversation I had with you is totally different, and I sit here stunned. And I can tell by the tremor in your voice, the hesitant. I mean, this is surprising to me, Dave.
No, John, well, with all due respect, John, while we may have talked about this before, I have never recommended that the town put itself in a position of a quid pro quo.
Right.
No, I would never recommend that.
And this is not.
No, I don't see.
Although we had meetings and meetings about how the money was going to transfer before or after, an escrow simultaneously passing.
Well, that's only incidental to this, your consideration, as I said at the outset, your consideration of the merits of this request. If you find that it does not meet your standards for modification, then do not approve it. But I've said earlier, and I'll say it again, if you think that the request has merit, then fine, approve it. There is the incidental benefit of the requirement for the payment of open space. But that should not drive the decision here, and I never said it should. Instead, if this request lacks merit, then, as I said earlier, we will aggressively pursue the overdue taxes that are owed on the property and the two other items, the outstanding debt that's owed for open space and the need to deed that property to the town today.
Okay, so aside from anything else that branches off this whole transaction, the merits of this is we are asking to be giving back some of the town land so a person in the neighborhood can put a pool in. That's the merit. There's nothing else. That's it, right? Okay.
Look, you know, you guys know the details as well as anyone.
That's fine.
But I just, again, wanted to make the point that this may be distinguishable from a case where someone is looking to claw back a lot of land in order to build another building. I don't think this is the same thing.
No,
I can't anyway, because you can't with the subdivision rules. You can't build another lot.
But I have a clarification question, though. I mean, if the administrative procedures had been followed to the letter of them, this land would have already been deeded to the town, and this option wouldn't exist.
That's correct.
Right. That's true.
That is correct.
That's true. Yep. It's true. We have input from two town residents, one of whom is in a butter, who say that they have purchased their property under the assumption that the adjacent property would be open space in perpetuity. And that they would really discourage the board from deciding to go ahead with this proposal. So just that.
Yeah,
We also have a letter on file from the town manager talking
He's one
about
of them.
his incident
He's a
from
resident.
an open space plan where he was asked to give up some of his land, and it became very concerning to him and consequential, recommending that we do not change the open space policy. So we have an old resident that experienced this, so we have another younger resident that bought a house because of this plan that was approved.
Yeah, I'm aware of both of those comments.
Yeah.
I did talk to Rich about the second of the two, and I guess there's been some effort to try to adjust some of the lot lines in order to take into consideration the concerns of that resident. So Rich can speak to that to a greater extent.
For this particular one you're talking about, the lot configuration behind it was discussion between Mr. Gavin behind on Chickatobit and Mr. Was it Taglianti? The purchaser and the owner. The original configuration had the parcel going all the way to the back property lines that abut Chickatobit. So this is a revised layout. Now, having said that, though, as we know, Mr. Gavin preferred nothing be done, but this was
Right, yep. This was an attempted compromise.
This was an attempt at compromise and to reduce the area in question.
Right.
So that's my, you know, that's
Understood.
my,
Okay, thank you for your input.
Okay, glad to.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that. You're welcome to stay with us while we deliberate. Okay. So we now have before us a decision to make as to whether we would approve modifying the open space subdivision permit. And we need to talk about that some more before we have a motion, one way or the other.
Now you haven't made a decision yet that the public hearing is closed. You gotta vote.
Do you want to let anybody else weigh in?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean the audience?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, it's going to let the board do it first, and then.
The public hearing is closed. Public hearing is closed. Yeah, the public's hearing is closed.
Nevertheless.
There's no input from the audience, you can't have it.
Okay, fair enough. So, from the board's perspective, any members of the board, anything you wish to say before we create a motion and vote on it? Right? Kevin?
No, nothing.
Sean?
I said plenty.
Okay, Aaron?
Do we have to vote tonight?
We should. We've put it off a couple of months already. And I think that the,
Technically,
Have we heard on the level of acceptance of the compromised lot line?
I think we have. Rich can report on that.
yeah, it's, again, that's a compromised lot line. It's not the preferred one. The preferred is 0.
But we have residents that objected to the proposed, and has their objection been,
It's been registered to the compromise as well.
they object to the compromise as well?
Indeed, yes, yes, yeah, yeah.
That was my question.
Okay.
Sorry.
Seems like a rather large pool, if you want my input, and
Yeah.
I never saw a plan that actually showed the pool, and I assume that the deed, if the property did exchange hands, would state that it's specific to a pool, and the pool would be located on the lot.
We haven't discussed that, but I understand your point, yeah. If you look at the outline of the foundation of the home there adjacent to it, I can't envision a pool any bigger than that. It'd be probably a lot smaller, you know?
Three pools, yeah.
But the use is almost irrelevant.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
understand.
I mean,
you're absolutely
It's
right.
relevant.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I don't know that it is. I mean, if the administrative procedures had been followed appropriately, we wouldn't be having this conversation. The land would be
Agreed.
deeded to the town.
Agreed.
So there's a loophole that, I mean, someone's trying to take advantage of, which is fine. I mean, it's their right. But there are neighbors that object to that request, and I don't know. I don't know that, I mean, I think part of what we do as a town is to speak for the public, and I don't know that if, at a point in time, the town approved this open space, it seems to allow it to be modified because of a loophole that existed. That just doesn't seem like a prudent decision on our part.
If we were to look at this subdivision prior to all of this, initially when it was proposed, and it had a lot like this, with the new lot line taken into account, is there anything that would have deterred us from approving the subdivision as proposed then?
Well, one of the considerations would be, is there adequate open space to comply with our bylaws? And I think we've touched on that.
Which there is by
And there is,
percentage, right?
Yeah, in this case, it's above the minimum requirements.
Right.
We don't know what went into the open space decision process with the whole project. We have no idea. The board did at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, none of us were on the board at the time.
In other words, some other concession could have been granted because the percentage of open space was larger than required. some other provision could have been
Sure.
compromised on because of that. In theory.
Yeah, I think just given the status of everything being developed around it now and the impact it has on the butters makes it a much different conversation.
I just don't think it's.
Well, all right, so
Precedent.
with any further discussion? Then Chair would like to entertain a motion to amend the open space subdivision permit. Someone want to make that motion so that we can vote on it?
We have the motion.
Do you have the motion to vote? A motion isn't a vote for yes,
If you
right?
get no motion, it's denied. I believe. Is that true?
Maybe you should entertain a motion to deny the request,
I think, well, we could do it that way. all
or
right.
that way, perhaps.
Someone wish to make a motion to deny the request?
So moved.
Second.
All right, so the motion on the table to deny the request. All those in favor of denying the request, say aye.
Aye.
Unless I heard it incorrectly, it is a unanimous vote. There we go.
That's it.
Unanimous, yeah.
All right.
Very good, well,
Before we move on to the next topic, Mr. Petrosi, do you have anything you'd like to add to the discussion? Thank you.
you take up the bond reduction request?
Yes, that's true. We need to do that. Go ahead and tell us where we stand.
So, by way of update for the board, I had a meeting on Monday with the pavement company, Pawtucket Paving Company, on site. There's one section on Winston that Bob McGee, DPW superintendent, wanted to have cleaned up. The pavement was a little bit unraveled,
Yep.
so they agreed to infrared that section from the old section of Winston up to there's a catch basin, or not a catch basin, but a drain manhole. It's give or take 15, 20 feet or so. And the Pawtucket Pavement agreed to do that, and they're working to line up the company to do that. At the same time, they agreed to provide the town with a 3-year warranty, which they do have the letter, right? Okay, so the letter, and Bob is in agreement with the 3-year warranty. Unfortunately, he hadn't a chance to write me back and say that, but that's what we've been working for all along, to get a 3-year warranty on this paving.
And Bob has agreed
He
verbally,
agreed- he
but not
agreed.
in writing yet.
Not in writing, correct.
Okay.
So, for consideration, an option for the board could be, subject to getting that final recommendation for Bob in writing. He just didn't get a chance to put in writing, but have had multiple discussions about it. And then you wouldn't necessarily need to wait till September to.
And what would the numbers be if we were to go ahead?
Yeah, the current bonds,
Somewhere in the 88,000 range, was it?
I think she's right.
Do you need a copy of the bond with the outstanding issues on it? Items?
About 88,000, I think.
Is that just the paving, that's it?
That's just the, no, that's more than that. It's, 88,000 is,
Do you have a copy of the bond with the?
yes.
All right.
Yeah, okay, sure.
84,279.
84,279, okay.
What number is that?
That's the remaining dollars that are bonded, is that right? We have a microphone.
And how much is, Bob saying is okay to release which components? Do you have that?
Just the top coat.
Well,
Go
may I
ahead.
speak?
Yes.
Lou Petrosi, Wall Street Development. The original bond request that was submitted on June 11th, 2018 was for $23,201. The board at the last meeting reduced by $18,800 plus 15%, leaving whatever the balance is, and that's the amount that would be requested. The remaining amount in the bond would be roughly $12,608 following this reduction.
So what item, Lou, is the balance due from? We reduced partial of it?
You reduced from tree planting, that category, at the last meeting,
Of the 18.8, we reduced some.
plus 15%.
15. Is Bob okay with the balance of the trees all set?
Not, we're only talking about the top coat.
Okay, so then not the trees.
Well, what about adjusting structures, cleaning basins, flush system, adjusting cleanouts, lumen seed,
This is the issue.
bounds? All of that work has been completed, so I don't know what you're referring to.
So
His well,
the top coat is 43,500 along with the contingency that
right,
applies to that 15%. Is that what Bob said is okay?
just the top coat. We didn't talk about any of the.
I know, but in order to install the top coat, you had to do all the other work, which is adjust the structures, adjust the cleanouts, curb stops, all that stuff, that all had to be,
Did you turn in the as-built yet for those structures all being the proper lettering room?
as-built have been turned into the town a long
The
time
final
ago.
as-built?
Excuse me?
The final as-built?
I don't know about the final as-built. I think Bob asked for something. I don't know whether or not that's been done yet, but
Well, the final as-built shows the elevation of all these structures and everything. That's why I was asking.
An as-built here from, well, it says progress print from
No,
October last year. Which wouldn't,
The final
the
as.
structures weren't raised then in
All
October.
right, so that's
Sure.
older then.
Were they raised in October?
I'm not going to go into the history here. It means
Why don't we can, we can go further on with your idea. I think anyway, we can approve to, I believe, we can approve to release the bond with the components that Bob he agrees to in writing. So if he agrees to the pavement and anything else, then we can release that amount with the contingency.
Correct.
So you get a follow-up letter for him saying which things in writing that he
Right.
wants to release, and then we'll just have a motion now just to have that released in advance. So you have to come back to the
Okay.
board.
Well, can I ask the question as to when we're going to get this? We've been waiting for, I don't know, 6 months or so for Bob McGee to write a memo.
Yeah.
So that-
Hopefully we can get to him tomorrow. Well, we're gonna make the vote right now.
Okay.
So,
The town has been waiting a long time for its money, too.
That's not my problem. I made my proposal, so let's not go backwards.
So go ahead, you want to make a
If you
motion?
want, I would make a motion to decrease the bond amount for the components and the amount that Bob McGee attests to in writing that he agrees are completed to his satisfaction.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Petrosi, we good?
Well, how long, should we have a date on this thing?
I'm
or
giving
what?
him a chance. I'm sorry, what?
Do we have a date as to when he would be providing this?
We don't know that.
We don't know that, but I'm sure
Well-
Mr. McGrath can get a letter out of him this week.
I'll continue to,
Well, Rich, you know our conversation that we had with the contractor this week, and he's not very happy, so
I know.
I'm just trying to facilitate a friendly
I agree.
situation.
And he's coming. He had eye surgery appointment today, so he isn't able to work on writing it. We'll work on it. We'll get it from him.
by Friday?
No, I'm not gonna be able to get it by Friday. I can get it by early next week.
I don't know if that's gonna be good enough, but you
want
can
me
do
to pull a
whatever.
motion?
I think there was discussions between Mr. McGee and Mr. Walsh.
Mr. Walsh, yeah. When?
So I,
He told me that he called Bob McGee 3 times and he's never returned his phone call.
All right, we have a motion on the table. It's been made by Mr. Weddleton and seconded. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No, one no, okay.
Well, I'd suggest that you talk with Bob and go over these components and
John, you know, I've been trying for the last, we submitted in September.
I'll personally try to reach him this week and see what he says, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. So that motion stays open until either we get a letter or until the next meeting?
Right, it's a contingent motion, right?
Right.
right.
Okay, our next order of business is 77 Pond Street, request for temporary occupancy permit. Rich, you want to take us into this?
Yeah, the Beta did go out and do their final inspection, and there was a few punch list items that were identified, which I got photos back in the office to say there was some catch basins that got cleaned. The lights will go in once the permanent electric service is installed. They're waiting, which actually is tomorrow, I think, right? Tomorrow's the date on that. And I think they did a really nice job. Driven by. Hopefully that counts for something, right? But and it's in order. I could recommend that a temporary occupancy permit be granted by the board for the site, and then once the lights, because the lights will be tomorrow, they have to get them in, get those inspected, and then we can switch it to a permanent occupancy once the board meets at the
Well,
September meeting.
I understand. I'd like to put a condition on the temporary occupancy permit of a certain period of time that says, look, unless these things are completed in that period of time, we're going to pull that permit.
That's a good point.
So what's a reasonable time, folks? 30 days?
Yeah, I mean, 30 days is more than enough, because that's before your next meeting anyway, so
Yeah.
that's reasonable. Absolutely.
Okay.
Just a quick question, does a temporary occupancy permit allow the site to be open to the public? Or just for them to go in there and,
Open to the public.
okay, so without lighting or anything like that in the parking
Well, they
lot?
have, I mean, they could probably tell you a little bit more. They got some work to do before they're ready for the public.
Okay.
And they need the occupancy permit to be able to get into the building to get fit up to be open to the public. So they got a little bit of work. I don't know how much.
So,
Yeah, go ahead, please. Identify yourself, please, for
I'm
the audience.
Kyle Lovejoy, this is Dave Lovejoy.
Right.
The owners of the property.
Yep.
So, yeah, we have at least 2 or 3 weeks of work moving inventory, building our shelves, moving tools and stuff, so we're not anticipating opening to the public right away, at least for a couple weeks. We hope after tomorrow, after the electricity's in, we should be within a week of getting everything signed off on. All of our final inspections are waiting on electricity.
You can't move your tools in until you have a temporary occupancy? Really?
You can't
They said
occupy.
no personal effects until,
Really?
it's going to take us a long time to do all that.
Yeah, really? We're gonna be able to move our inventory in. Oh, I understand, yeah. I understand, yeah.
So you can be open to the public under a temporary occupancy permit. Is that part of your question? Or?
Yeah,
Okay.
my concern is just the safety of the site.
Yeah.
If they are going to open up to the public and it's not complete. So if, I know. Okay.
So I think I think it's very reasonable that to make sure that the outside lighting is operational, functional before they're open to the public as a condition of it.
The only issue with the outdoor lighting is it's all on a battery backup system, so he couldn't install it, or else it would be on 24/7 on the battery backup without permanent electricity. So that's why it hasn't been installed yet.
Can we
Takes
condition
care
the
of that
temporary
battery.
permit so that you have to have an occupancy permit before the public's allowed in the building?
Good question.
The other question, Rich, that I would have is, why are we dealing with occupancy permits instead of the building inspector?
We make
We
a
have to sign off.
recommendation
Make
to the
re-
building inspector.
We make a recommendation,
Sign
but
off.
it's, okay, so we.
Yeah, the
this-
connection is the site to the,
Fair enough. So this is a motion not to grant an occupancy permit, but is to recommend granting an occupancy permit, is it?
recommend.
Okay.
Basically,
Just
of
to
a
clarify
temporary.
that.
They're asking us as if we did feel that the
Yeah,
site
it's
is
fine.
far enough along where they can
Yeah.
grant them permanent.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Permanent.
There we go. That's not confusing.
Easy for you to say, right. Okay, with all of that said, we need to carefully craft a motion. So if someone wish to go ahead and take a crack at that. How about you, sir?
Oh, yeah. Oh, this is a complicated one over here.
Yeah. Well,
I move that we recommend to grant a temporary occupancy permit to 77 Pond Street with the recommendation that it also not include public access? Is that right?
until the lighting is in place.
Until the lighting, the exterior lighting is in place.
And that all the other
Yeah.
deficiencies described in beta are cleared up within 30 days.
Or you could just say.
Or
that
we
the-
withdraw the
You
thing.
could say that the public isn't allowed in until he has a permanent occupancy.
Is the intent for the public to be there in the 30-day period?
Well,
Maybe.
we're hoping within, as soon as the electric's in tomorrow, everything should be completed within 2 weeks.
So the intent is that you would want the public to be able to be
Well,
allowed in on
a
the...
question I have is, will Bob grant us permanent occupancy, or do we have to come back to the board to get permanent occupancy?
No, once it's done, he shouldn't have to come back here.
I believe you can go to Bob.
Yeah.
So then,
So it makes it a little.
hopefully we'll have permanent occupancy
That grant the
before
temporary-
this 30-day period
Yeah.
And then
anyway.
they could go for
Without
the
public
permanent
access.
when they want, okay, got
Yes.
it, okay.
Okay.
So,
So you were saying, sir?
Which really makes the 30 days moot, because as
Yeah.
long as it's not open to the public,
Yeah.
and they could take, well, I don't know, we wouldn't want them to be, they wouldn't want to occupy it for 2 years without
No,
the
but
public.
things happen, and I'd just like the
Yeah.
30 days to be on the record, that's all. Things happen. We're going to have a hurricane, for God, who knows? I mean, it could slow you down.
Yeah, normally in the past, when we've okayed this, and there haven't been many, there has to be assured safety for the public.
Yeah,
And normally, the other things for occupancy are other things that don't affect the safety of the public necessarily. I know at the car wash, they had to do some curbing and some paving and
yeah,
signage,
yeah,
but
yeah,
everything else, safety-wise, was completed.
okay.
Bob will regulate all of that.
Yes.
Yeah,
yeah.
once they try to decide.
So you want to
on
read
whether-
back the motion, if, please? For the benefit of our,
I'm not sure I can.
let me try again then.
all right, okay.
I move that we recommend the approval of a temporary 30-day occupancy license for 77 Pond Street with the contingencies that everything in the beta report is accommodated for, and there would be no public access allowed until all exterior lighting and safety measures are completed.
Second.
All right, very good. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is a unanimous vote.
If it wasn't completed in 30 days, they would have to return to this body?
They lose the
Yes.
But they have to start over
Unless,
again.
unless
here.
Bob, unless
Lose our
Bob-
recommendation.
well,
No,
they
they
lose
lose-
our recommendation,
Right.
and of course, Bob is the guy holding
Then
the
they can
keys.
be ready for permanent. I mean, it's like 32 days, the temporary occupancy permit sort of, expires.
And,
If that's what the
welcome.
building inspector grants. 'cause
I
they're just
appreciate
looking
your
at-
business.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys.
We're not granting them this. The building inspector's going through all
We,
the decide what
we,
he wants to do.
going to take a 5-minute break.
So.
Do we know?
Okay, we are reconvened, and our next
Told myself it wasn't going to
order of business is informal discussion of site plan approval for 273 Dedham Street. And I think we have up on the screen the drawing.
I'll probably be helpful to help introduce this a little bit.
Sure, please do.
For the board. Yeah. So I sent down an email to the board, just kind of give you a background, which maybe created more confusion than help, but I recognize that now. Right here is shown is a trailer. What the owners of the property are trying to do, so right here is 269 Dedham Street, where Mitch's Auto Repair, Orlando Garage is currently. If you recall, there was discussion when we had, before May town meeting, we changed the bylaw to allow for opportunities for new car companies to sell via the internet, no on-site sales. So really, essentially, it's more like a distribution site for sale for automobiles that have already been done. Company is Carvana. So they're going to be leasing this building here, which is 269, the entire property. The way the zoning bylaws are written in town, in order to operate a business, you need to operate from a building. In addition, the building needs to be a minimum of 2,000 square feet. The desire here is to try to, they need to vacate for Carvana to come in and take over the space. In turn, they would like to try to keep a presence in town to operate while they go through a permitting process for a much larger building here, which is approximately 11,000 square feet. The repair work will be out of town. This trailer, if were to move forward, allow them to continue to do sales of automobiles, which they have a secondhand automobile license for the property, which does include all 4 properties. There's a special permit for that, as well as the landscaping equipment. So what they also filed with the they also filed with the Zoning Board of Appeals for a variance for the building size, which is scheduled for September 19th. At the same time, they did at least reserve themselves. They applied for a variance from the site plan approval process through the planning board, just to put that in the queue, so to speak. We've had discussions that I think that coming here to get the feedback of the planning board to essentially fast track a small site, I'll call it small, for a much smaller building, while at the same time working on approving a site plan for a much larger building, which would be a permanent home for everything that we just talked about, as well as the repair work as well. And so that's kind of an overview of it. So it's not a typical situation by any means.
So you totally lost me.
Did I?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I'm happy to try to.
So
Yeah,
basically,
Just a second, let them finish the question, then they'll give you a mic, we'll let you go. Go ahead.
so these folks currently in the building where Mitch is,
Correct.
that's going to Carvana.
Correct.
They want to move to the existing building on the other side of the,
No, none of this exists. This will all be a brand new building.
oh, okay.
Yeah, it's all brand new.
So they want to work out of a trailer on that side?
Until the
Right.
building can get constructed as
So
well.
the building could, the permanent larger building could get constructed.
And what's the variance they're looking for?
So the variance they're looking for is the building size, because right now under the C1 zone, you gotta have minimum of 2,000 square foot building. They're looking for, whatever size this is. It was 8 by 24. 8 by 24.
And what's the hardship with that?
The hardship? That's on
Well, they're
the,
going for variance, right?
correct.
So there should be a hardship to make it credible. What's the hardship for a smaller building?
I'm gonna turn the mic over to their attorney.
Oh,
That's their-
It seems to me the hardship is if they don't get the variance,
They have
they
to go
can't
elsewhere.
operate their business in town until they build up the new
In the
building.
interim,
The
right?
variance isn't for the new building, the variance is for the temporary trailer.
Oh, okay, now I understand.
Yeah.
And is
Yeah,
the
the variance is for the small building.
the building's undersized? Is that, you said 8 by
There is-
24?
He-
It's supposed to be 2,000 square
Yeah,
feet.
but I think we're confusing subjects.
There is no
still
building.
catching
They
up.
wanna
It's
operate-
a trailer, right? I get
Variance,
that.
the
Yeah.
new building,
Trailer.
the new,
Yeah.
but the new building will meet the town
Yeah, the
bylaw.
new building.
Right. So the variance that's
It'll
being
make 2,000
requested, which is the point of this conversation, is for the trailer in a temporary condition.
Correct.
Because Carvana is moving into theirs and they need a place to be.
Yeah, they have to vacate their present location. And again, they need a building to be able to operate. So the trailer on a temporary basis would be the building.
Let's have them compliment what you've already said,
They'll
please.
probably do a better job.
Sure, thanks. Hi, my name's Tim O'Toole. I'm one of the owners of 269 Dedham Street. And if I could, so today we own all 4 lots. Kurt Maloof, my partner, is the one operating on the lots today, and he stores equipment and autos behind this fence you see here, and he uses the front of the fence to display. In simple terms, what we're looking to do, while Carvana occupies this space here, we're looking to store behind the fence what is being done today and continue to display in front of the fence what is being done today. So that's what we're looking to do. Not to conduct business, just store behind the fence, display in front of the fence. To do that, we were told we needed a building. So we devised the idea of a trailer, a temporary trailer, while we pursued construction of the building you see here. In its simplest terms, if we could store and display without a trailer, so continue what we're doing today without a building, that would be
Yeah,
our simplest interest.
There's one question that I have here. I was under the impression that when Carvana was going to come in and do business on this lot, they needed all of that square footage to store the cars that they had. So it's unclear to me that you could continue to do what you're proposed to do and still allow Carvana to do what they want to do. Is that not, am I wrong on that?
You're partially correct. So Carvana is going to take possession of what is known as Lot 2
Sure,
and Lot 3.
okay.
Okay? We will maintain possession of Lot 4 and 5.
And they don't need 4 and 5 in order to do their business?
Correct, they do not. Their business will cease after Lot 3.
And are you going to have access from the Dedham Street to 4 and 5?
Yes, so there's a few proposals in place. There's access as part of the display area today that we could use to access the site,
There's a gate there that you can get through the fence?
right? Yes. And we're exploring the idea of accessing it directly off of 1A, but as you know, that would require state approval.
Are you storing things behind that fence now?
Yes,
You already are,
that's correct.
and that's
So-
all right.
Yes,
And you're not going to be storing anything more.
nothing out of the normal.
Right here, how does the zoning implicate things now? Before you had one lot to do things, now you've got 2 separate businesses, but it's still one contiguous lot, right? You're not breaking up and subdividing that lot, correct?
There's 4 lots.
There's 5 lots.
There are 4
There's
separately
4 lots.
described lots.
No, but are they separated, or are they just as one? They're separate
They
individual
are
lots?
separate,
So lots number.
Please.
sorry, I'm
No, that's okay. If you're going to speak, we need to have you on the mic and identify yourself,
Yes,
please.
Lisa Whalen from Gellerman and Cabral. I represent Tim O'Toole and Kurt Maloof.
So Lisa, that new building that's proposed, right, on those 2 lots, that will meet all the zoning requirements for that district?
Yes, I'm told from our
That will,
engineer
Jim?
that it will comply with zoning.
All right, road egress, everything, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, understood.
But just to be clear, they're not here today talking about the new building
Correct.
Not today, no.
today.
Not today. What we're seeking is the ability to continue to store and display, preferably without a building. So, but per the bylaws, a building is required to display and store.
And what's the time frame to start the building?
So we've engaged United Consultants who've prepared this drawing, and I believe we're, the timeline, Jim, for submission?
And if you don't get the variance?
If we don't get the variance, then we'll be forced to find another location to store. Displaying would be impossible, and that would negatively impact the revenue of my partner.
All right, so if you don't get the variance, then this whole plan there goes adrift and you're looking for a new location. So all this hinges on you getting the variances you need.
So he's already relocated a portion of his business, which is auto repair. That has gone to the town of Walpole.
Right.
What we're concerned about is the revenue he generates from displaying
Right.
and selling autos.
So I understand, but if you don't get the ZBA relief, this project can't go, correct?
Correct.
So you've got to take the proposed building and the storage in front of the fence and go elsewhere.
No.
Yeah, we'd have to basically relocate the business to a place where, see, auto repair is not allowed in Norfolk anywhere without a special permit. We have a special permit here, that's how we're allowed to do it. So I was forced to relocate because to go through the special permit, it would take too long.
Yeah.
So we already moved the auto repair business. But the tractor business, the lawnmowers, all that new stuff we sell, all the vendors that do business with us,
Correct, yeah.
yeah, we'd have to basically find another location to do that as well. And no, and the other thing is, we keep a lot of new inventory, and the tractors are pretty big. I mean, we only have a 25-car permit for selling, so it's not a lot of cars. But basically, the small engine, I mean, you can have 100 pieces there. Okay, they're still in crates, they're wrapped, but we have to have a place to put them.
So if the worst comes to worst and you don't get the variance, it's possible that you'd have to relocate the business.
I'd have to
until
the building's done.
the building is constructed, and then you can come back, assuming you wanted to.
Right, assuming we wanted to, which we do. I mean, we have a lot of customers in Norfolk. I'm from Rentham. I grew up in Walpole, so we've been in business 40 years. So it's been an ongoing
If
business.
doesn't prove it, then they can't do that.
I understand, yeah.
Then they'd have to move their operation.
Yeah, so it's going to be less intense than it was currently.
No, they're not
Yeah.
asking for
But it's
2,000
basically
square
people
foot
walk
trailer.
up, they see something,
They don't want to put any
they
trailer.
want to buy it,
Rather
but
not.
we are going to relocate the
They're saying that they
small
want to put
engine
a trailer.
office, so we're going to
You
keep
need
that
a
in
structure, it's
Norfolk
just not
somewhere.
putting
All right, now, if someone wants to question you about a car that's out front or whatever, they're going to come in through the gate that's on Lot 4.
No, those cars are out front. We have a display area.
Yeah, I
that's
understand,
in
but
front of
how are
the
they
gate.
going to talk to you? They're going to walk into the trailer, right? Talk to
Well,
you?
they could come to the trailer, but normally there'd be call this number,
Okay.
right? And that's how we do it, especially on weekends. By
Each item for display would be tagged with a contact information
Okay.
temporarily until we
So we don't,
reestablish.
there's really no necessity to walk into the trailer.
That's
Right.
correct. We do not want, I mean, customers will naturally walk the display area
Sure, sure.
after hours and on weekends, but, you know, the fence is secure with a gate. Nobody should be behind the gate.
But
And
right now,
everything's hidden
that's
from
not
view.
allowed without a building, is that what they're saying?
That's right, yeah. You can't,
Unless you get temporary relief, you can't even
No.
leave those things out front for sale.
That's
Correct.
correct.
right.
And now the other thing we have to take into account is a used car license is attached to the town. So it's attached to this property, which my auction permits and my licensing, and so that would, dealer plates, that's all attached to this. So I'd basically have to take the used car business and apply for a license in another town, because again, Norfolk doesn't allow auto repair or sales.
Do the people of Carvana have any say over this new proposed?
No,
They have no say?
no. They're just tenants.
So,
So in the be,
when it's all said and done, and you guys have completed the new building, what's going to be in the new building?
So basically, I think we talked about, I'm going to occupy a piece. We want it large enough to also rent retail, storefront, you know, nice storefront, people can walk in, and that's what Jim has designed for us. He has all the parking drawn up, he has all the landscaping, the drainage.
Plus the car sales.
The car sales would be part of it, yep.
Limited to 25.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the long-term vision, if you
Yep.
will, is Carvana provides the benefit of financing, helping us finance this construction.
Sure.
We limited their lease to a maximum of 10 years, because I'm very curious, as I'm sure you are, is the development of the Southwood property. You know, that's going to need support. And so the theory is once that site develops, you know, maybe Carvana stays, maybe not, but this retail area would be extended, and then we'd wrap it. That would be, they'll call it the 10-plus year vision of this site.
Now, with the plans for the new building on 4 and 5, presumably you'd have a fence there between 3 and 4, right?
Yes. It remains to be determined what type of fence.
Fair enough, but I mean, you'd want a barrier between Carvana and yourselves.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think that's only logical.
I think
Well,
normally
I'm
how-
following that logic through, sorry, John, but when the new building's up, the existing fence would be down.
This fence here?
Yeah.
Yes, that would be taken down, and that would be all landscaped appropriately and beautified, if you will.
I think before we give you a temporary permit to do things, we should probably have an idea what you're gonna be doing down the road. Do you have any floor plan sketches, buildings, so we see the layout? So if we're letting you operate with a trailer against zoning temporarily, we should at least know why we're doing it, to what goal. So do you have a layout of what you're gonna be doing so we could see that?
I think this is the extent of our drawings thus far, is the location of the,
So our goal was basically to double the size. So we were going to go about 15,000 square feet. That was our goal, depending on the buffer zone. So that's twice the size that's there now. The goal was for Orlando's to occupy a third of that, and then build to suit whoever wants to occupy the other 10,000. It could be multiple businesses, it could be one business, but we could divide it up. We'd like to have storefront, we'd like to have, you know, sales in the front and you know, loading docks in the back for people to operate businesses.
So, I think picking up on an earlier conversation about putting a time limit on things.
Right.
And if we were to grant a special condition here, if we were to ask you how long you'd want it for, what would your answer be?
Well, how long does it normally take if you do everything by the book to get permits from the town? That would be a fair question.
Well,
Is
you
it
gotta-
6 months, is it 12 months?
Well, maybe we could put some sort of, or
Well, we're not the
We're
ones that
happy
can
to-
grant this. I mean, it's the
Well,
ZBA.
there's really two tracks on this thing. So
Yeah.
one is a site plan approval through the
For the new
board.
building.
No, for the little trailer
Okay, all right,
and the new building. So you really got like a phase 1, phase 2.
right, fair enough.
So more of an expedited for the trailer to go through the F11 process, and then a longer process for the permanent building.
if I could clarify, again, the trailer idea was devised to accommodate the requirement of a building. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, right.
The intended use is storage and displaying,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Sales won't be done on site, you know, repairs won't be done on site, customers won't be welcomed on site. Will they enter the display area naturally? Yes. But, you know, the fence won't allow them to go past that. We'd be happy operating without a trailer, storing and displaying. That would accommodate our immediate need today.
Meaning
Right,
that
but
you
we
never
don't-
go
we
into the
just- we
trailer,
need-
even if you
We
get
just need to
it.
put a contingency on that, that if we approve this, for whatever reason,
got a
that
trailer
you
on
could,
site
you could
that's a
operate in
liability
that
because they're not even
capacity
using
into
it.
the future.
And that's expected.
That is.
And we'd be happy to put a time limit and come back to you and demonstrate our progress on this building.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I mean, I don't want it to be like every month, but maybe if we need updates like every 2 months
When
or
is your
every 3
hearing with
months.
the ZBA?
5th of September.
5th of
I
September.
think the biggest thing is, you probably should find out where they stand if you get the variance. If not, everything is just down the tubes anyway, correct? You probably should wait to see what their feeling is at the ZBA, and then come to us with a modified site plan, just so we can control the activities. And then, as Eric said, we could put some type of a time frame in on how you've got to proceed to go from that trailer to your building construction.
I think that was the plan when we met with Rich, was that we wanted to come to you to see what kind of site plan you would want to see from us while we're going to the, assuming the zoning board is okay with the variance for the trailer, would you be willing to entertain sort of not a limited site plan as per the bylaw, but sort of a phase one site plan just for the trailer?
Yeah, I think that, to me, the main thing we have to worry about is just controlling the activity to make sure it's safe. Sure. So we have to know what's going to be stored there, what quantities, where your egress is, how much traffic is going to be. So once we were confident that it was safe in a temporary status, then you proceed with your building, and a lot probably won't change from the trailer to the building, except you'll be storing probably more inside.
Yeah, we did actually, we kind of bantered the idea of the variance without a building, and that became too far of a stretch under the bylaw. So this is kind of the secondary approach, was the trailer, which is smaller, so there's still a building. So we did kind of look at various options how to work with this.
These folks are looking to build a building and a business, and they need relief. I'm all for that. I'm happy to get you on
The
your
trailer's an inconvenience for us.
Right,
It won't be used.
Yeah, but I think,
Like I said, all we have to do mainly, from what my perspective is, just make sure it's safe, your activities, when you're operating there temporarily, and that there's a schedule on how you're proceeding, so the trailer's not there 7 years from now because a recession kicks in, and you're operating from a trailer there, and things change,
That's
That's
fair.
all.
That's fair.
yeah, so I'll add to that. I think it would be helpful to see a site plan that shows the area you want to operate from on a temporary basis. So identify the area you're going to be storing stuff, identify the area you're going to be displaying in, put a time frame on it, come back. I think what you're hearing is we're open to the conversation.
Yeah, we are.
We wanted to know what you wanted to see on the site plan.
Yeah.
So that's helpful.
Yeah.
And is it fair, could we propose a site plan without a trailer? Strictly storage and displaying?
No.
I don't think
No.
so, no.
Okay.
Based on what I've heard from Rich, I don't think the answer. So with the sequence, it sounds like, is go before the ZBA on the 5th, is that right?
Why wouldn't we accept a proposal without a building?
We don't think the zoning board would
It's stretching it.
go for it.
There's a
We're-
variance.
but we're not
and
the
it's
zoning
blowing the
board.
bylaw up.
Is the trailer going to be primarily unoccupied? Like, you're just putting it there to satisfy
That's
the
correct.
bylaw?
That's correct.
To comply with
I
zoning.
think that's a,
No customers will be on site
They're asking.
other than the display area.
so there's not even gonna be, like, someone just kind of manning the yard?
Customers will
It's
naturally,
gonna be an unoccupied
walk the display
trailer.
area.
That's the way they operate now, though. That's what I'm saying. They don't
They
need.
operate out of a
today.
building.
The trailer it's
It's an artifact.
an expense for them that they don't need.
It's an artifact to
The
comply.
trailer,
with.
like I said, the trailer is just a way to try to work within the framework of the bylaw to get, to be able to make this transition
I
happen.
like to think there's a way.
Well,
But the bylaw isn't,
Variance to not-
the bylaw isn't, do you need a building or do you not need a building? The bylaw is, yeah, you need a building, but it has to be at least this big. So the
Right.
variance is to the size of the building necessary, not yes or
And then
no.
they can have a normal site
Correct,
plan.
correct, right,
Because the site plan still has to conform with zoning.
Right.
right.
I think what
So,
they're saying is that if it's amenable, they would be willing to come in and say, grant us a variance that we don't need a building.
That's correct.
That's a ZBA.
That's a ZBA
That's a
decision.
question. That's not
That's
us.
a ZBA decision, right. So go before the ZBA and start with, hey, we don't want a trailer, can you give us that? No, we can't give you that. Okay, well, then here's the trailer. All right. Once you get through that hurdle, then you come back to us with a site plan for the trailer, which says, hey, we're gonna run electricity to it, or whatever else we gotta do to it, and your engineer can help you with that. And that, we meet again on the 19th of September, so we'll expect to see you then, assuming the ZBA gives you the go, with a site plan that covers the trailer, and a schedule that says he'll come back with the plans with you in 2 months, he said, and we'll see what you're gonna do with the new building.
So based on the feedback, I want you to walk away tonight and contemplate withdrawing the request for the
The site plan.
site plan
Right,
variance.
which is what we thought, we had hoped to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's ultimately tonight, was trying to at least take one thing off the table.
Yep.
I would also add to this, that if there's a date, well, I guess,
Yeah,
I was gonna say, if there's a date that you you need a resolution on this, you should make it known. But it sounds like there isn't, because you can keep doing what you're doing. There's no, well, I guess there's no reason you can't keep doing what you're doing until you're kicked out of that building.
Yeah, when does Carvana come in? When-
August 29th.
Oh, just round the corner, yeah, okay, round the corner, yeah. okay.
We had a 30-day window with a company like that. It wasn't great for us, but.
So once the ZBA gets your variance, then we could start to move forward on the temporary side.
That's not gonna help. I mean, come September 1st, he needs to, can he still operate on site on September 1st?
Well, he's got, what, 4 days to live until he gets to the ZBA?
I don't think we'll be disruptive to the town.
No, I think for 4
Well,
days.
Carvana should just give him an office inside.
Try to work in a business-friendly manner, right?
Separate lots.
Take 4 days to move out of the building, you've
Maybe-
still got a building.
Maybe you need to rent a trailer for a month until you get this resolved.
Well, that's whatever.
I think I'd be in trouble if I put a trailer on the property.
We want to appease Bob too as well. So your input is great. Bob would like that. I'm sure Rich will tell him, and then we'll go forward.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Appreciate it. Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank you.
Rich, I
So
think,
that landed better than it took off, that
They usually
explanation,
do.
right?
Rich.
So, Rich, they couldn't keep an office in the Carvana building, and that violates
That's a great question.
requirements?
Yeah.
Well, that's something that we've asked them to kind of pursue as well.
That makes
See
sense.
if,
yeah.
All they need is a phone hooked up and a desk.
yeah, that is our ultimate option one, but they haven't been able to reach agreement with them to be able to do that yet, so,
Oh, with Carvana?
yeah, they haven't been able to do that,
Wow.
so. That's why we're in this.
Changing the lease would probably help, right? The terms.
Wasn't the idea around approving like the whole Carvana thing is because we did not allow car sales?
Right, for
So
display.
they went through a special permit
Yeah.
process and got
There's a
one.
very limited amount of special
So-
permits in
oh,
town.
okay, so they have like a grandfather.
They have an
special-
older-
Or they have an old special
Yeah,
permit
old
where they
special
can
permit.
display, okay.
Correct.
I was confused there.
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah,
like,
yes, yes.
The thing that rang my bell a little is if the intent is to get rid of that wall or that
Right.
fence,
Right.
the whole idea was that the cars would be stored behind the fence.
Right.
So now where are the cars going to be stored by Carvana?
Those still have to be behind the fence.
But there's not going to be a fence
Well,
anymore.
they have to build a new one then.
They're gonna have to put up a fence.
That's why the
Yeah.
numbers, the
I think
numbers
the fence
of,
stays.
Yeah, he said it's gone. If you're looking at the
Not-
lines there, lot 4 and lot 5 is just about 75% of that fence, right?
Yes.
He wasn't getting rid of the fence yet, though.
Not yet, yeah, but
Not
down
yet.
the road. I mean, we're just saying the way the long-term plan was pitched to us about why Carvana was a feasible solution for that area was
Well,
that there wouldn't
isn't that
be
the lot
anything out in the
three?
open. Just want
And
to
it
make
still
sure that's
can't be
still
either,
the
Which is
plan.
totally
Right.
empty.
I
It's
think-
lot 3 is where the cars would go, right?
Yeah, I
Where
think they're
it's
gonna
totally
build a
empty.
fence that block lot 3. And then they'll have all the cars up and around. the
Right.
Carvana.
I mean,
Plan of
they
the-
used existing fence in all of their examples about the way things are going to work.
the cars.
Just
Here,
throwing it out there.
today,
That's a
but not
valid
but
point.
Carvana isn't storing behind an existing fence. All their stuff is new.
Their
So these
fence is new?
Yeah,
I don't recall
Carvana.
they're talking about a new fence. I thought they used the example of, how it looks now. You're not going to see anything the same way you don't see anything the way it is today.
Yeah, they're all stored behind wherever.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think
Out of
that-
sight.
I think they were saying that just like it is now, everything would be stored behind a fence.
A new
Not that
fence.
fence, but a fence.
Okay.
So basically, this will bring us back to having things for sale on the main street again, which was one of the things that we talked about with the Carvana, trying to, like Kevin said, trying to eliminate that.
It exists.
But Carvana doesn't have the right to do
It
that.
exists,
Well,
on a special permit, that's what he said.
right,
For
exactly.
the other business,
For the other business.
not for this one.
So this is a new business, so I would guess this new business wouldn't be grandfathered.
The special permit follows the business, right, not the lot.
What are you,
What are we
what
calling
are
a new
you talking about, a
business?
new
Yeah,
business?
We're mixing subjects in this
Absolutely,
conversation.
absolutely, there's no new business.
Carvana
What new
doesn't have the
business are you
right.
talking about?
Carvana's gonna
display
be in
cars.
the existing building.
Yes,
Right.
Their business is gonna be in the new proposed building.
yeah, but they're not a new business. They're just moving from one building to another.
Is the special permit tied to the business or to the lot?
I don't
It's
know.
tied to
It's
the land.
It's tied to all 4 of those lots.
It is.
Yes.
All 4 of those lots, so they can do that,
Yes.
okay.
So then can Carvana now display and tie into that special
Not
permit?
Carvana, no.
Why not?
Well, why not? It's tied to the lot.
land.
That's a good question.
That license is with,
So then it's tied to the
Mitch's.
business.
And the lot, though, it's both. It's that lot and the business.
All right.
We should get clarification on
They
that.
are separate 4 lots, yeah.
Well, that's what I
We
asked him,
can-
he said they were all, yeah, they are separate.
Yeah, they're all,
lots.
they're separate, they're 4 separately
The 4 separate lots under the same ownership.
All right, but so if the special permit, what lot is the special permit that's existing now on? Is that on the lot where the building is?
The building, right now,
There are 4
269.
separate lots, and the special permit is on lot number 1. And them moving to do the same thing on lot number 4 or 5, wouldn't that require another special permit?
No, he can operate the secondhand car sales on the new lot 4 and 5.
Storing out in front,
And the display?
yeah.
Yeah, he can,
Under a special
he can
permit.
do that.
And you need no special permit.
Yeah, he can shift basically that special permit to the other lots.
I would check on that.
I
We
thought it
did, I
was,
could show,
Yeah.
I'll send you the special permit. Because Bob did look, actually, that was one of the first questions that Bob had raised.
Didn't you say it was a 25-car max? And I thought he keeps the 25-car max. I didn't think Carvana was putting cars here. I thought it was kind of like a sales office or something.
no, it's
No,
a
it's
storage facility to
Storage
distribute. So when
facility.
someone orders it so online, the car trailer comes in, it
Okay.
stores the cars behind, and then they deliver them out from the warehouse.
The question
So a warehouse
becomes,
of
is
cars.
could Carvana take advantage of the special permit and put 25 cars out front?
Right, right. And now you get
And it's
the,
25
Not
car
if it's
max
assigned to the
across all
business
4
as well
lots.
as the lot.
Well, Carvana could put 12 cars out front, and
The other guy.
the other guy could put 13 out.
but now you have the activity of all the cars
No,
coming in,
because-
unloading trucks, cars and picking them up.
We
And now
should-
you've got the sales along the street from the existing,
We should banter about
If-
this later.
Yeah, so I immediately regret leading us down the rabbit hole, and I apologize for that.
Okay, let's move on. All right, it's up to Rich to talk us through a couple of these things. The first is this drawing here, Fox Run, all the repairs, and
Oh, yeah, so the final drainer repairs, as I mentioned at the last plan board meeting, are done at Fox Run. We got the tapes, the videotapes of the after work that Beta's got to review, take a look to make sure everything's in order.
the
So-
paving.
So the
It's
paving
done.
is, they're looking to pave in September. I don't have an exact
Yeah.
time yet. What they'll be doing is discuss sending a notice out to all the residents in Fox Run to give them alert, give them at least a week's head time to know that the paving is going to be starting. The I haven't actually didn't go out the past couple of days, but the wall should be done at 1. It's not done yet.
No, I'd say it's half done.
Half done? Okay. They're putting up the new stone masonry wall in accordance with our subdivision regulations at 110 Warren Street to hold back the slope there to keep the beech tree and the cherry tree, sorry. And then in the process, so that work should be completed. The homeowner, we met with them on site, seems to be happy with the way the work is turning out. And then they'll be hitting the punch list as far as they got to go in and do some more loaming and seeding where it needs to be done. So the punch list is what Bob has put together. He'll be overseeing that work with them. They did reach out to meet. I'm going to meet with them next Wednesday morning. They're interested to see whether or not speed bumps could be put in the development itself. I'll meet with them Wednesday morning. We'll talk a little bit about it. Generally speaking, we prefer not to have speed bumps.
yeah, that's the police chief.
You know, they're kind of frowned upon.
No,
The al-
the Norfolk side's only one half of the development as well.
Yeah.
Some of the complaints perhaps about speed bumps might even be from the Rentham side, which we have no control over.
Okay, so we'll kind of talk a little bit about that. Maybe considerations if you put put in temporary ones in the good weather that you put out and you can remove them. But that would be something that would fall on the homeowners association to do.
Just for edification, what's the objection to speed bumps?
Sometimes they create a lot of noise because people go faster than they're supposed to be on them. sometimes it can be a safety issue if they're not designed well, because you're going at a little bit higher rate of speed.
They tried them over Everett Street, didn't they?
Yeah.
They're still there, right?
They're still,
Yeah,
yeah, they're still there, yeah. And then the other thing, we got to be mindful of how the drainage system is laid out, so, you know, we don't want to impede the flow of stormwater too, because this would be something to be done afterwards. But I think, you know, like I said, the temporary ones might be something to give consideration. They're actually pretty good, because they're pretty abrupt.
Okay. Yep.
But overall, I would think, we'll talk a little bit on Wednesday, but the speeding should be people who live within that development.
Yeah.
So if they they would have a better opportunity in some cases to self-police themselves, because they have an association and everything, so we'll talk a little bit more about it, but I just wanted to give you an update.
Okay, so we're waiting on beta report,
Beta report,
on the
yeah.
on the videotapes, right? Of the
Correct, yep. And then
of
the
the
paving get
repairs,
going,
okay.
and then the plan would be to get it lined up for acceptance in the spring of next year.
Yep.
You obviously were part of our planning board for the past 4 years. I think that the consensus was, for all the problems there, I mean, Gary knows, we don't want to accept that for at least a couple of years. We want to keep the bond in place, we want to make sure everything is still working, all of the cuts and all of the trenches, all don't settle, so the board that approved that designed the reconstruction, the repairs, we all agreed, and Jeff was on the board at the time, who's now one of the selectmen, that we definitely do not want this thing patched and then accepted by the town. And they were told this over the past 3 years. There's a waiting period until everybody's confident that no more settling's happening. And I think over there, has anybody ever tested the water like they were supposed to?
Testing the water.
mean
There's
water
been times
line.
where the water comes through a little cloudy.
No, I'm just talking about leaks for
The sewer
leaks.
line,
Oh,
the sewer lines, right?
Yeah.
The
I
sewer
don't know.
lines.
PVC sewer lines.
That's owned by the residents, so we don't
Right.
have any say on that.
Right, that's what we were recommending that they test.
Well, I recommend
because-
they test for the water, just to make sure that if all of these other drains were not packed right, if the water lines weren't, there could be cracks that we're gonna be responsible for, which was another reason we wanna hold off for a couple of years to make sure everything's working.
Yeah, I think some of it too was that it was a series of assumptions about we can sleeve this area, we don't have to
Right,
touch
right.
this area, we're gonna replace this area. And if either the replacement wasn't done properly, sleeving was the wrong call, so many assumptions, and without having any track record as to if those assumptions were correct, you need time to validate it.
Betsy's got the history and all this, Betsy's been around to all of these
Okay.
different meetings, so there's been a lot going on here, so we wanna make sure that before the people of the town are responsible, that everything they said and did is all really working.
Yeah, and that's where,
And they know that too.
Yeah, they didn't have any objection to it the last time. I thought we
Right,
talked
right,
about it
right.
either.
And we told them we're gonna keep their bond, or most of the bond money, or make them insured or something. And I think Bob McGee will update you on that too, because he was part of it all. Yeah,
all right.
for your sake,
Yeah.
well, for the town's sake too.
So.
And they were okay with that.
Yeah, I sat next to the engineer, I remember at one of the meetings. And they will still maintain the road, they're responsible for plowing until the town
That's,
takes over the road.
that's correct, yeah, that's correct.
So I should, or collectively, we contact the homeowners association, and just make the recommendation again, that they should be, I thought the problem with testing the water lines was you have to shut down the system.
It was a little inconvenience.
Yeah.
You don't shut off the whole system, things are done sporadically as they move down the road, but you remember me talking about this, and the DPW was gonna do this perhaps 2 years ago, and it never happened, but where the water pipes are right beside the drain pipes, and it's all packed with the same shale.
Yeah.
Because if the water pipes are on shale and not bedded in sand, then those seams will give too over time, you're gonna have slow leaks. And the leaks can cause sinkholes and loss of water pressure and everything, so. And Pulte had agreed to pay for that testing too.
Yeah.
Anything else on Fox Run?
No,
Okay.
that's it.
All right. Next is Town Center grant update.
There's not really a lot to update you on. The board, it's just a matter of, once we get the go, sign the green light, we'll get going. I would expect that we probably are closer to getting started.
You have the money for the engineering?
Different grant, we can, that one, I'm waiting, that's the end of September.
to get the money to do the engineering?
Correct, yeah, so.
And Kohler and Colatoni was gonna do it?
Correct, right. So hopefully, by the 19th, planning board meeting, maybe we'll have a decent idea if we were able to get that grant or not. So I'll update the board then if I hear ahead of time.
Which one are you referring to? The engineering one or the?
The engineering one,
Engineering.
yeah, the engineering
You
one.
should try to coordinate, Rich, if we have to dig up the road to make the water line a little bit larger, you should coordinate with Columbia Gas. So I've been trying for 10 years to get that gas line run up and either to the bridge or over, so all of those spots of natural gas, so we can have restaurants and things that need that, you know? Because it's right there at the intersection, so. Once we're gonna dig this road up, if we do have to, we might as well get
Might as
everything,
well.
everything done that's gonna be at the time, because it's a 5-year moratorium, so. And the gas line is right there,
So where are we, at the circle?
the owner that owns the white building where the Norfolk House of Pizza is, he paid to run the line from the roundabout when they were doing the school
Up to,
to his building, because
Okay.
the story was that Norfolk House of Pizza, with their pizza oven, they would come in every morning at like 4 o'clock to turn on the oven, so it was hot enough
Yep.
by the time they're making pizzas. And I think his electric bill was over $1,000 a month, so
Yeah.
but
Yep.
he did that for the tenant.
Yep.
But it's right there now, the line,
Okay,
so.
yep.
So it's right there at the Rotary.
Right there, yeah.
Okay.
That's why they were gonna bring it up. And the town hall is gonna need a new system sooner than later. With the natural gas right there, you can bring that up and connect that, and Walgreens is there, so, yeah.
Okay.
But they're hard to deal with, the gas folks, as you know.
Okay, let's see, complete streets?
Streets. So we did have that kickoff meeting that I mentioned at the last planning board meeting. There is, I'm just waiting to get the link for the wiki map that we'll put up for town residents to go in and provide feedback on, you know, walkability, safety issues related to streets and sidewalks in town. The one thing I will just want to update the board, there will be a public meeting that once the link is up, and we'll get that out to everybody, we'll hold a community meeting in early December. We're trying to coordinate it so it's the window of probably the first week, second week tops. So we're not into the holiday season, we're past Thanksgiving. But right now, the consultants in the data collection process to look at all the traffic reports that we've had for the different development projects in town and doing some data gathering. So they're really in the data collection phase right now. And so once we get that link, I'll get it from them. We'll push it out to the board. We'll get it on the town website, and then we'll put it on the Facebook page. We can put the link out there, spread the word. And I am going to go on TV Monday with Anne-Marie Battistoni.
Oh, bro.
Oh,
So
Good.
set my DVR for that one.
it will be taped. So maybe, I don't know if I have the link by then. Maybe I can make a plug to put the link out there too.
Is this gonna be part of the knitting show, or is this separate?
This is a separate from the knitting shop. But,
It'll be on YouTube shortly thereafter.
It's a
if
cross.
NCTV is
Two
doing
birds
it.
with one stone. I can just
I
watch
did
it.
enjoy watching the knitting. I told her I did get to watch. It's pretty cool.
Very relaxing.
Cross promotion.
Very relaxing.
We're cross
So
promoting.
what's let's assume that we get the Complete Streets grant down the road.
Yes.
We got a pot of money. What's the process for determining how to spend the money?
So part of the whole planning exercise is we'll put together a prioritization plan of the town, and we'll just list the projects in there, and then it could be sidewalk improvements, safety improvements, whatever those projects are on this prioritization list, and then there's the funding that comes around through Complete Streets each year. We can submit them to the state for funding.
And who has the final say on the priority list?
The town. It's the town's priority list.
Yeah, but
But who? Is it
The town-
Bob McKee? Is it
Well, the road
selectmen?
commissioners, the board of selectmen, had the final say. Hopefully, I'm sure they'll be doing it in collaboration with other
I
important
think the planning board's
boards.
got the final say where it's about streets and public ways.
Well, They're actually, the road commissioners, the selectmen, but I'm sure they'll take all the planning board input and we'll work together to have a joint plan.
Or your designated liaison on the Board of Selectmen from the planning board, one of the two.
Yeah. But I'm sure they'll, you have a former planning board member on there right now, and a sitting plan. So
do, yeah.
I'm sure they'll be heavily reliant upon the planning board for input into the process.
All right, sir. All right,
Last but not least,
yes, zoning bylaw change proposal.
sure. So what, all right, so last item is, I've been working with Bob McGee and Environmental Partners, working towards getting the Holbrook Street well online for the town. The, one of the requirements in the authorization for that well to be put in service is some housekeeping things on our end. There's two pieces to it. One, it's the map that you see on the screen. There is something that we will be incorporating into the zoning bylaw, which shows the it shows these diagonal line areas, which is the zone 2s for our well, the public water supply. Zone 2 is the zone of contribution to recharge the public water supply. Those presently are not on our map, and they're referenced within the text of our bylaw to go to the state website, which is a GIS version. So the report says two things. One, you need to have a hard copy available to the public within the town, in town hall, DPW, wherever, to display. So part of it, print that hard map, display it on the wall so it's available for the public. And then the secondary part is to have it incorporated into the zoning bylaw so it's all in one place, which we'll have on the website, have it available. So it'll be two forms.
So because you're creating this new well, we're creating more Zone 2 land.
We are.
Correct, right?
Right.
So all the houses in there that are in this Zone 2, which is extensive,
Yep.
most of them probably don't comply with Title V being in an aquifer district, which is
Probably
10,000 feet for a bedroom. So what's going to happen when these people have to go redo their septic system, and they've got a 20,000-foot lot, and they've got a 3-bedroom house, and they need 30,000 feet because they're now in a Zone 2? How do they work that out? Nobody mentioned it?
No.
I think Board of Health ought to come in then.
Well, I do think that they are grandfathered as to the number of bedrooms that they have existing. They couldn't add any additional.
All right. What if they had to repair them or replace their system?
They could still replace it if it was a 3-bedroom house. They could still.
Something you might want to find out for sure before we start to bring this to town meeting, because if people are going to be held to the new Title V requirements.
Well, so just a point of clarification, these already exist, part of them.
The new stuff.
And the new stuff. So there is kind of
There's an overlap.
There's an overlap, so there's really.
So how do we know what's new and what's?
Yeah, we don't have the
Just
actual.
concerned about the new stuff, that's
Well, the
all.
new structure would be the Holbrook Street area,
Correct.
right?
Well, it's extensive, the Zone 2.
It is, but I mean, if it overlaps a great deal, the Gold Street.
There is. There's quite a bit of overlap.
Is Medway Street part of that?
It is.
Yeah, it
So
is.
Medway Street has a lot of older homes there that are,
But they've been part of the Gold Street system for a while, according to the drawing, anyway.
I guess the grandfathering, that may be the case, I'm not saying it's not, but
Yeah.
you just look at it realistically, there's a brand new well, so because you're grandfathered, so you now can put more nitrogen in that area just because you're grandfathered? I don't know. I'd say it's something they should definitely check on.
Yeah, we'll definitely have
For town meeting.
an explanation for town meeting, and we'll get the answers to those questions for the public hearing that the board's going to have later on. I mean, at least.
Betsy, Wade may have already been through this before in the past, you know?
Oh, I'm sure. We deal with it on a regular basis anyway,
Yeah.
currently,
New wells,
with the existing zone twos.
right.
I think we'll phone up, get our homework on, to answer that question for the public hearing. Although I will, unfortunately, yeah, there will be an impact, but,
Well, what happens is you start to affect people's potential property values, because if somebody wants to sell their house and somebody wants to put an addition on for another bedroom, and they can't, because they're now in an aquifer district, that affects the property values.
no, but
Yeah,
I think,
Having a town without water affects the property values too.
You don't say it doesn't. You don't say it doesn't.
I think in the water might be a little higher in this case. But, because this well, right now, is just to create some redundancy to add, to help offset. It's not, it's not for additional flow.
No,
It's not. Oh,
No,
I was under the impression it was. That was going to solve our problem.
No, it's not
It
it's
breaks
not,
down.
no, it's not
Yeah,
additional
That's the
flow.
problem.
That's why that's why the permitting is a lot quicker, because it's a redundancy well.
True, but I mean,
But the problem is, all of these rules we're talking about, they're all state law, it's not local.
No, the zone 2 is it's part of the state, but we have to abide by the regulations.
Exactly, yeah.
so just
Just
to clarify then, the town is still looking for an additional well site to augment capacity. Is that right? Because
Yes.
yeah, oh yes. Yeah, no, we're
beyond Holbrook Street.
correct. Yeah, this is a redundancy well to help.
All right, I did not understand that.
And
Yeah,
it's multiple wells too, isn't it? Like 3 or something?
yeah, I think there's 3 or 4
Yeah,
that are there.
yeah, that I knew.
Small ones.
That I knew, but I didn't
Yeah.
realize it was so done.
I guess it can include too.
So what
Right.
so again, I did have time to craft the language. The language for this article isn't really overly complicated. It's just some strike through and to depict that map, which will be referenced in the bylaw.
Is this map going to be a complementary map to the existing zoning map? So you have map A and map B, this being map B?
No, the good thing is they're integrated. They're together. So you don't have to have a map A or map B.
I understand, but the more information you overlay over, pretty soon you can't tell what the heck you're looking at.
On that, certainly on that level, on 8.5 by 11, but it'll, on a full size, it displays much better. It's more readable.
Okay.
If we can, now we certainly can improve the readability if you want to. If you have any thoughts.
I think for town meeting, it's important to note what's being added,
Yeah.
We're going to have a
versus
public hearing on this too.
what's there.
Yeah, you'll have to have a public hearing. So that
Maybe we should get a bigger blown up map, Rich. so
Yeah, we'll have
We
a-
can see which areas, which streets are going to be involved.
Yeah, I think what we'll do, we'll have a much larger map, a hard copy that we can have printed out.
And when will the public hearing, is it in October sometime?
Yeah, whatever. We
Town
haven't got
meeting
to.
is May, November 27th,
Yeah, so it'll be an October public hearing. I don't know.
probably late October,
Yeah, and
early November.
fair enough. And we'd have all the answers that we're talking about for that public hearing too, right?
Yeah, the answers that you asked, the questions that you raised tonight. Yeah, we
Yeah,
can
okay.
have the answers for those.
Right, understood, okay.
If you wanted to, so I don't know if you're inclined to at least put a motion together, start the process to move this forward to the selectmen.
Okay.
Motion to approve the zoning amendment? The zoning bylaw amendment as proposed by the town planner.
Second.
All those in favor? Say aye. Aye. It is a vote. Now, we have, this language is acceptable to us, which is good, because on the September 13th, if the warrant gets closed, excuse me, September 18th, it gets closed, right?
Day before our next meeting.
And we won't have a meeting between now and then, so This is the language that we're recommending.
And this language is already, I've already forwarded this over to the DEP to
Yep.
make sure it was acceptable to them, so we wouldn't have any hiccups with it, and it was, so.
Oh, that's good. Thank you, Rich. I think we're down to minutes of meeting.
Is that secretary?
Look at it. Now, we had 2 minutes of meeting that were proposed by our competent assistant there, right? You had 2 minutes of meeting that you put.
Yes,
Yep.
2 sets of
Two
minutes.
sets of minutes. One was June 27th and the other was July 25th.
Sounds good.
And the June 27th, I had 2 questions, which I forwarded to Betsy. One of them had to do with the police station solar canopies and the amount of electricity that was going to generate. My recollection from the discussion here a couple of meetings ago was that was going to, those 3 together were going to generate $200,000-300,000 worth of electricity credits to the town.
Did they ever put a dollar amount, or was it only
Talking
speaking?
about the carports?
Yeah.
Oh, God, no.
I thought it was just going to cover the use of the
It's
building.
gonna be like, the 3 carports were covered, by eliminating the half of them, initially, we wanted to half of them, it was only $3,000 a year. That's why I was
Well,
saying.
we eliminated the front one and left the other 2 as is. They said they could accommodate the equivalent square footage into the others, which they ultimately decided they couldn't do. So in essence, what we did is we eliminated the front one. And my recollection, I guess I'm wrong, was that it was considerable amount of money that those 3 would generate, and the fact that we eliminated the front one would cut back $3,600.
Right, the other 2 are probably a total of maybe 7 or 8. The solar field we have by the DPW, I
Yeah.
believe that brings in $250,000 a year.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Maybe that's where I'm confused. Fair.
Right,
All
right.
right, thank you.
I guess they might not be able to do it now, is that true, Kevin?
I haven't heard anything new about that yet.
Matt was talking about the, something came up and he wasn't sure whether the carports could actually be used, something to do with the company and the structure of them and things like that.
I haven't heard yet.
So I told him after all the hearings, you better get the carports. Right?
Yeah.
So the $3,600, if your recollection is
Per year was for eliminating one.
eliminating that one, right, and eliminating the one up front.
Right.
Then they
Now,
make
at
the,
this meeting, we proposed that there'd be no loss because they were going to accommodate
yeah, they
square
made the other
footage
2.
into the other
Yeah,
2.
they made the other 2 bigger.
And that didn't
Structurally,
happen.
that wasn't
Yeah, he
possible.
That
came
didn't
back,
happen.
yeah,
Right.
That's right.
And they still have them on the whole roof.
Yes, that's
Still a
true.
lot of the-
That's
the
true.
electric's
That's
coming
true.
from the roof.
But at least for this set of meeting minutes, there was no loss in square footage, therefore there's no loss in the anticipated electrical generation from those solar panels. And the total solar panels were gonna generate, what, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 or something like that? 10,000, 20, I don't know what it was. It was a lot of money, whatever it was. And 3,600 was the smallest of the 3, not to mention the roof.
So the other 2 might have been 6 or 7 each.
Yeah. I just can't
Everything
remember.
that I have recorded in notes is all in kilowatts. There was nothing that I had ever
Yeah.
written down as far as dollars associated to
Well,
that.
Matt coughed up dollar numbers when he was here.
14 cents a kilowatt or something he was saying.
But he also put it in terms of dollars, too, I
Right, he
thought.
did, he did.
Anyway, that was my only point. And there was one other grammar thing, which,
Yeah, and there was a couple of comments which I made.
Yeah.
so-
so with
I've
that,
got an additional one too, but it looks like the signature line at the end
Yeah,
is still Kevin.
oh, it's still, I changed that in my version.
Change it to Walter. Oh,
Oh.
I'm looking at the email. The
on
notes,
the
it looks
July
like,
one?
yeah,
I changed to Walter because you weren't there.
okay. And the previous one was Kevin.
Was Kevin, yeah. I changed that one.
so do we have a motion to accept the minutes as amended for June 27th?
Motion to accept the minutes as amended. Both sets.
Both sets, okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
They are adopted.
They do abstain from the one I'm not here, but since I put them together, I can't, so, aye.
Do we have any other business before we consider a motion to adjourn?
I have two quick items. I guess they don't need to be matter of public record, but why not? Through my reading that Betsy handed me, I have two that piqued my interest. One is that Medfield has approved I've lost the language here, sorry, maybe it's on this page. A senior housing residential development overlay district, which I think is an interesting concept.
55 and older?
There are
Senior
three.
would be above that.
There are 3 pages of 3 double-sided pages of explanation, but it might be worth reading.
Do you know where River's Edge is, Eric?
I do know River's Edge. Yeah.
That was zoning for 55 and older.
Yeah. So.
So it's already did that.
Interesting development in Medfield. And we got another one from Millis, which is a 22 multifamily residence, 4 family residences development, also a senior development, and I think also interestingly, both of these are under the 40A development. So I'm taking that, no, the chapter 40A, which means they're not.
Are there addresses as to
Oh, there are addresses.
Okay.
I'll pass these around so people look at. But the thing I guess I was interested in noting is that neither of them are 40B projects. So.
Well, perhaps,
They have
could
zoning
you
for it.
scan them and send them to us?
Of course.
Okay, thank you. That would be.
That was my new business.
Anyone have anything else you'd like to bring up?
Never mind.
And the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.